order at 5:35 p.m. this special meeting of the Mayor and City Council, and the Mayor and City Council acting as the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency of the City of San Bernardino. Mayor Pro Tem, would you be willing to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Always happy to do that. Please join me in.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra is not present at the moment. Councilmember Figueroa? Councilmember Charette? Councilmember Reynoso? Councilmember Kelvin? Councilmember Alexander? Mayor Tran?
Here. Before we conduct city business, I would like to declare that as elected leaders of the city, we will endeavor to be respectful to each other, our public, and especially our staff. Our behavior this evening sets the tone for how our residents, business community, and others view our city. We must conduct city business with professionalism and respectful behavior to build trust, credibility, and move our city forward. We shall commit to these values and foster a positive, productive working environment that is conducive to achieving our goals effectively and efficiently. Thank you. Moving on to public comments. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
I have not received any requests, and we don't have any on Zoom either.
Thank you. At this time, no, we have no public comments. Thank you. Moving on to presentation. We have one item. That's the proposed budget fiscal year 2023-24 biennial mid-cycle review. Could we begin with staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm Barbara Whitehorn, Agency Director of Administrative Services, and this is Zuivo Ruiz, Budget Division Manager. We'll be kind of tag teaming, the report tonight. I'll start, then Zuivo will take over, and we may go back and forth a little bit, but mostly the structure will be me and then Zuivo. To start, our overview of the presentation is the timeline. Then we'll talk about revenues and expenditures, the changes that we've made up to this point in the budget, our forecast and the fund balance that we anticipate, and the next steps, and then time for discussion. So tonight is our special meeting for the budget workshop. Then June 7th will be the public hearing for the budget, and then the budget adoption for the second half of our biennial budget, which is fiscal year 23-24. Revenues are looking really quite healthy, which to me is a little surprising because we are in a recession, but it's a kind of strange recession right now. We still have really high employment. We still have really good revenues in sales tax and in Measure S, which is a transaction and use tax. We anticipate that our sales and use tax will be higher than we had originally budgeted for fiscal year 23-24 by about $6.5 million. And Measure S, we anticipated an additional $5 million. So those are really quite healthy numbers. We do expect that those numbers will start to come down at the end of next year, but still higher than we had initially budgeted. So that's really quite good. We also increased our numbers for transient occupancy tax. We've seen increases there, and we are also recommending, and the city manager will be coming to you as well, that we include Airbnbs in our transient occupancy tax, because obviously we have a number of them in the city, and to tax those will bring in a significant amount of money to the city. Franchise tax, Burtec, obviously their rates increase annually, and we're seeing more money from them. And we have other areas where we've also seen additional funds this year, and so we've increased the budget to reflect that for next year. And then I'm going to turn it over to Zuiva to talk about, whoops, sorry, wrong side. Then these are the details on those individual areas I discussed. And I will turn it over to Zuiva to talk about expenditures.
Sorry, let me go back. Okay, so this is a general overview of what the new expenses are going to be looking like. So off to the right-hand side is the mid-cycle review proposed. So we've shown some percentage changes, and I will address a few of them. So city clerk, the 13% increase that you see there is due to the addition of 2 full-time positions in the department during fiscal year #23. The increase in the council office is due to the increase in the council compensation. City manager, there is a 20% increase, but as you see in finance, we also have a decrease of 11%. This is due to the grants division moving from finance into the city manager's office, so that's why there is an increase there. The 19% is for CED. And that's for 5 full-time positions that have been added in fiscal year '23, as well as the percentage of this housing personnel that needed to be absorbed from general fund in order to comply with the CDBG allowable administration costs. Legal services, there is also an increase of 23%. This is for the $1 million that was ongoing that we brought forward at mid-year for the outside specialized legal counsel. Parks and Recreation, there is a slight increase, and this is due to some annual funding being implemented in there for some activities. Police Department Public Works has a slight increase as well, and this is due to 13 full-time positions being added in fiscal year '23. For the other funds, we have Animal Services that has a slight increase as well. This is due to 3 full-time positions being added in fiscal year '23. The Liability Fund has a slight increase as well, and this is to encompass the $2 million that we brought forward at mid-year as well, which is due to covering some higher than anticipated settlement agreements. So for the positions that were added in fiscal year '23, so community and economic development, we added senior planner, an assistant planner, plans examiner 2, an economic development specialist, and a permit services supervisor. For library, we added 3 full-time library technicians. City clerk, we added a customer service representative and an executive assistant. Animal services, we added 3 full-time positions, which are the animal services manager, supervisor, and officer. For the police department, we added 11 full-time civilian positions. So that was 4 community service officers, 3 police record technicians, 1 accounting technician, 1 senior office assistant, 1 crime analyst, and police dispatcher. Public Works, we added 13 full-time positions. This was the deputy director of operations and the maintenance worker package that was added during Q1. So in total, we've added 37 positions in fiscal year '23. This has an impact on internal service charges, which is supported by Human Resources, IT, and Finance. So as we increase the full-time positions in the city, the departments that support the internal service functions must also be able to adequately support the departments within the city. So payroll, IT, and HR have not grown to serve the departments. For some context, we've provided a historical overview of the full-time positions that have been in the city. So in 2008, you can see there was about 1,314 full-time positions. At the time, there was 25, 16, and 5 full-time employees respectively for IT, HR, and payroll. And then as you see, as we go down in 2020, we had 720 full-time positions, and at the time we had 13 full-time IT positions, 12 full-time HR positions, and payroll is now down to 2 full-time positions. Right now for 2023, the full-time count for the city is 822 employees, and we have 14 positions in IT, 13 in HR, and 2 for payroll. Some of the additions that have been added in the fiscal year 24 mid-cycle review is $250,000 that's been added annually for support of the 66ers stadium maintenance, $100,000 for citywide professional training, $75,000 for some specialized recruitment advertising that we have as we try to attract more talent to the city. We've also added a full-time human resources technician, a full-time payroll technician, and a full-time network systems administrator. We've also added $17,000 for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program to allow for more outreach marketing services for DBE, $100,000 annually for the tree lighting supplies for downtown, $100,000 for Miracle on Court Street, and $100,000 annually for Festival. So a total of $1,062,691. This is a rough forecast of what we've added so far. So we've also implemented a few reserves in there. We do have the 25% economic and emergency reserves, and this aligns with our general fund reserve policy that was adopted in 2018. We also have a strategic initiative reserve, which is about $2.6 million, and a capital contingency reserve, which is about $3.9 million. The strategic priority reserve details will be discussed during the council retreat, and the capital contingency reserve will be set aside to cover any higher than anticipated capital costs, and a full report for capital expenditures will be coming back to the mayor and city council as well. Some important considerations when updating the fiscal year 24 during the mid-cycle. So the general fund revenue forecast, this is subject to change depending on economic conditions. The budgets for fiscal year 23-24, when they were originally built in the biennial adopted budget, did take into consideration CPI, and in the updated mid-cycle review, some increases in staffing and any committed costs during fiscal year 23 have also been implemented during this mid-cycle review. For the capital improvement, like I mentioned, the finance and public works departments are working together to bring the mayor and city council a full report on planned and ongoing CIP projects. These were some projects that were brought forward to the mayor and city council. They were not in our original adopted CIP list, but they have been brought forward in fiscal year 23. So the Carousel Mall demolition, about $8.1 from Measure S was committed. Spiker Ball Field improvements, $1.95 from ARPA and San Manuel grants. The Norton Gym facility upgrades was $30,000 from Cultural Development. The Arrowhead Farm Street rehabilitation is $490,000. And the Cross Street Bridge, we will be building into it once we know the full cost for the construction of the Cross Street Bridge. So some of the next steps for budget adoption, we will be holding the public hearing on June 7th for the first round of the budget hearing, and then we just need to approve and adopt it, and then we will come back to the mayor and city council with quarterly reports and the mid-year update, as well as CIP reports and updates. And at this time, we will open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Do any members have council wish to discuss or have any comments? And please be recognized by the chair. Councilmember Reynoso?
Sure. I would have liked to have seen the old, I think my biggest priority was to see the capital improvement projects that were under bid, and they're not here. I know we have these new additions. My colleague here asked a good question. Who actually owns San Manuel? Not San Manuel, I'm sorry, the Sixer Stadium. Is it San Manuel outright? Do we own a percentage of it? Does anybody know?
I think we own
We own it outright?
it. City owns it.
Outright.
Stadium.
Okay. And yeah, I'd like to know more about, I see these numbers, and in 2008 we had 25 people in IT. I'd like to boost that up if possible. My main priority is public works though. So I don't feel really that comfortable, honestly, having like a full-fledged conversation about this without seeing how much we need for public works and the CIP projects. Yeah, so I kind of want to limit my comments to that because I feel like we've got to get that in order first.
Thank you. City Manager?
If I can respond to that, we have, as part of the workshop that's coming up that I've, trying to get on you guys' schedule, I think we've got some possible dates for that. But if you recall, in one of our earlier discussions, in fact, one of our first discussions I had with the council, we discussed the council's priorities. And one of the comments I made to you is that I didn't think your priorities were aligned with terms of the resources you're putting behind those. And so part of the work that we'll do at the upcoming workshop is to, in my mind, make recommendations to you to bring those in balance. And so directly to your question about Public Works, we have some holes there to bring that up because of the priorities the council said. But the same is true in a number of areas. I would include housing in that, because I think that we need to make some adjustments there. In the economic development area, we've talked several times about having an economic development team that goes after the projects that we've been focusing on, as well as police. So there's several categories that I want to present to the council. I've asked them to set aside money as part of this, but I want to bring that to you and then have a discussion on the council's part to tell me if I'm on target or not. If you agree with those, or you want to increase it more or decrease it. But we're in the process right now of compiling those recommendations, so they're not ready at this point in time. But we've got a couple more weeks and we'll be ready to bring that forward to you. But that's in line with the whole discussions I said earlier about having a specific workshop to talk about the priorities.
I'd also like to support the HR department. It seems like they need more employees there. I just figure that's a safe way. We have a lot of issues with liability, clearly.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of paperwork.
You know, the one thing I'll say to the council is that if you saw in the chart earlier, you saw the decline on the staff, what it used to be back in 2008, and then you look at where it is today. Now, clearly, some of that reflects the change because of the fire department. So you have to count that, take that into account. But
Privatizing trash.
yes, and trash. So you have to take those two figures into account. But overall, we still are not where we were in terms of staffing. And what we are proposing, I've asked staff to develop a long-term strategy for bringing our staffing back up to that level. We're not going to be able to take it all at one time, but what I want to bring to the council is a proposed plan over the next 5 years to bring in to address that. And to have you adopt that plan so that you know every year, here's based on your priorities, here's what we were recommending to make the adjustment. So in year one, we'll bump up specific departments based on your priority. Year two, we'll bump up the other departments, again, based upon your priorities, until we get to a full complement that the council's comfortable with, and that our budget can support funding.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And just so my colleagues know about the past, but when we did move fire services and refuse, to privatized refuse, the staffing around that time, what I recall, for refuse was about a little under 100, and fire was it's about 200. So if you really remove that, we're still under capacity to be where we should be, especially law enforcement. So that's just something we just be mindful as we are growing our organization to be more effective to serve this community. Do we have any other comments from other council members? Councilmember Alexander?
Thank you, Mayor. On page, well, there is no page. Positions added to budget in the FY '23. I'm not sure what page that is. We're there? Or you can go there, I don't know. Right. We do, only been on 2.5 years, we do this all the time, but we never know what has been filled. We never know if any of these positions that we authorize all the time have been filled. Is there any way in the future we can know what's been filled? Is that a possibility to put that in there so we're not, I know we get this thick book, we all get it. It lists every job that's in the city, every job. So when we authorize jobs, are we authorizing new jobs, or are we just fulfilling the ones that are vacant? You see where I'm coming from?
Are you using your, if I
Right.
Councilmember, can you turn on your mic? Thank you.
I think what you're saying is, we budget, let's say in a department, any department, we budget 25 jobs in there. Right. And that's in the budget, but there's only 15 of them filled. That's what you're talking about?
Right, and also,
And we don't know, I mean, we've got the money, but we can't get the bodies. That has been kind of a problem, has it not? To fill those positions. So when the public is talking, I mean, you know, we went through this with the bankruptcy, and everything was blamed on bankruptcy. No money, no money, no money. Well, now we've got money, but we can't get bodies. And I think, is that the line of
that too,
conversation?
but I just like to know what we've actually filled. Like I said, we get these thick books, and I can see mine in my office right now, that list every single job that we have. Are we creating new positions when we approve these FTEs, or are we just,
Yes.
And that's a good question, Councilmember. So City Manager, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are new positions that were added
creating
Created.
new
and
positions?
approved. Yes, these are new positions, but your
So a senior planner is a new position we're creating?
additional one.
That was a new addition to, we had other senior planners, but that was an additional senior planner that was added.
So like in the book, it shows 2, 3, 4. It shows how many positions we have for that particular senior planner for our city. So, right. so it may or may not be
Councilmembers,
filled.
please be recognized by the chair. Councilmember Alexander, any further comments
Well, it's not a comment. I
or
just need-
statements
I just need a,
or question?
right, so my question is, I need a little help to let us know how many of these are actually being filled, or actually you're creating new ones, right? Because some of these are the same jobs that I see, because I went over the book, and I said, okay, we have these positions.
No, no,
Are they full? Are they not full?
Let me try.
Give us a little help in the
Mr. City
let me
Manager,
try
I just
and-
want to announce, Councilmember Ibarra just joined us. Thank you.
Let me try to answer that, if I might. What you normally get is a list of all the authorized positions in the city. Those are the ones that the council has authorized you, and we budget for. What you're asking for, in addition to that, is tell me of these authorized positions, which one are filled, that have bodies in them.
Right,
Correct?
so
And which one, and which ones are vacant, and what's that number look like?
because we have 822 personnel according to this, right?
Authorized position.
Right.
Authorized
But
position.
these are not employees?
They're authorized positions.
No.
They're budgeted authorized positions, so does not tell you how many are filled. So you're
That's
asking
what
for
I
a
wanna-
breakdown.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I want to know.
That's what I'm saying. There's a difference between authorized and filled positions.
I
Right?
understand that.
And you're asking, you get the authorized, what you're asking for is the filled position.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
saying to you, that's not a difficult task. We can get that for you, if that's what you're asking for.
So we can do that by the
I mean, Barbara,
mid-year?
is there folks who,
The next budget meeting, we can have that.
We can get you that anytime. I do just want to caution that will change from,
Yeah, from day to
literally
day.
week to
Exactly.
week.
And if
Yeah.
you could just,
somebody
Director
quits or whatever it is.
Whitehorn, just to say as of this date.
Absolutely.
And it can change.
Yeah, and we're happy to do that anytime, because that's an easy report. Zuiva is actually position control for the city, so she keeps track of all of the vacancies citywide.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Another question is, the general fund expense budget additions? I don't know what that page that is. Yes. So, as Councilmember Reynoso said, we asked about 66er Stadium, so I'm gonna ask about California Theater. We own California Theater. This says, 66ers gets $250,000 for maintenance annually. You added that. Is there no reason why we can't add that to the California Theater for maintenance annually? Because it's ours.
We added this because we have a contract with the company with the 66ers to pay that annually, and it was not included in the budget, so we needed to add it because it's
Okay.
a contract that we're committed to. We absolutely could add it for the California Theater. There's
'Cause
no
we own
question
it.
we could. Staff just didn't add that because this is something that council had already agreed to contract for that 250, and staff had neglected to put it in the budget.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
But yes, absolutely, council could say, we want to commit this annually, and we absolutely could.
Well, you know, seeing that is, everybody's been to the California Theater and you know how the maintenance and upkeep, how it needs that. And everybody comes through the California Theater, the school district, out-of-town visitors. It's the one that people come mostly from out of town to see, not the baseball park, the theater. And also, do we own Shannon Hills Golf Course? Do we do any maintenance with that? On a-
There
on a-
is
like
an
on-
agenda item for the 17th for that specific golf.
Did we? Okay, I just want to make sure we're not dropping the ball on city-owned property, that's all. And do we still have to pay that $5 million if something goes wrong before we get to our insurance? Are we still at that?
Yes,
We are?
that's the self-insured retention level.
Yeah.
And that is something that I believe the city manager and the team is looking at assessing to see. But we have to be marketable to be where the insurance want to reduce that SIR. But I know the staff is working on that for assessment. So we need to manage our risks effectively for them to even want to consider.
Right, but I was like, maybe we could set aside line item money, like $500,000 a year or budget to build up to where we have $5 million, so we don't have to dip into our general fund to pay something every time we do something.
We have a risk management line item.
Do we?
We do. Liability.
What,
There's a liability line item and there's a workers' comp
where's
line
the,
item.
is there a liability line? I must have
Yes,
missed that one.
there is.
All right,
It's been
okay.
amended to 9 million.
All right. I just want to make sure. I'm always looking
Not a
out.
problem,
All
Councilmember.
right, I missed that one.
Any other questions?
Negative.
Okay, so I have Councilmember Charette, followed by Councilmember Sanchez, followed by Councilmember Calvin.
I'm going to go back to the number of employees, because it sounds like we right now have 822 budgeted. They're not all filled. And that's what we want to see. And I think we don't want to see new positions. I mean, obviously, there's some that are needed, but should we be filling vacant positions before we create new ones?
I agree.
I mean, if something out of the blue, all of a sudden now we need a new person to do this job, then we gotta fill that position. You follow? In other words,
Yeah, but not all, if I can say this correctly, not all the new positions are in departments where we have a problem filling. Some of them are, but not all of them.
okay.
Understand?
It's kind of a
Yeah,
difficult balancing act, I think. But we should show filled positions on a list like this.
And perhaps,
I'm sorry.
No,
No, go ahead. I'm
okay,
sorry.
no, please, no.
Oh, I'm just, in some areas, we are trying to fill, for example, Public Works.
Right.
Classic example. A lot of projects in Public Works. I hear the council all the time and say, you know, we've got projects out there, things that we need to get done. We need bodies to do that. And so what we're finding ourselves sometimes is augmenting, and you heard that word the last meeting, to bring people on a contract basis. But we're out there trying to fill these positions. But we know we need, the long-term goal is to get the full-time equivalent bodies in that shop.
Right.
So we aren't relying on augmented positions.
But in addition to new positions
addition,
that
new
come up
positions, we
as
still-
needed,
We still have a threshold that
still-
we need to get to,
there's still new positions that
still-
are always being created. Hopefully
to get.
appropriately
Right.
created, not
And
just
so,
creating.
so in response to your question, we have those positions, we have a need there to ratchet that up. Sometimes we struggle with getting certain of those positions filled, and HR will say, hey, you were having a problem with this one position, maybe we need to look at raising the salary, doing something
Right.
to make it more attractive. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying to fill the new positions to keep building that workforce up,
Right,
so.
okay. And then with regard to maintenance, the Councilman Alexander commented about, I think it goes without saying that we should know what the maintenance cost is. We don't want to just arbitrarily say, well, the Sixers get $250,000, so we're going to give the California Theater $250,000. correct? I mean, that's not what you're suggesting. Could
No,
you just
I
say-
just want them to recognize that it's there.
recognize that we need maintenance
It's
on
on
city property and
property.
city buildings
Yep.
and appropriate the right amount based on the need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an asset that we want to maintain,
Right, and in some cases, maybe not just maintain, maybe improve.
improve,
Yeah,
exactly, enhance.
Thank you, Councilmember. I just wanted to go back to the positions. I would assume and recognize that the city manager, human resources departments are assessing the needs of their departments, and if there's vacant positions that's not needed, they could use that vacancy for something else that's much more needed. So it's really assessing the department's needs. So there's a position determination questionnaire that has to go through, so forth. Would that be accurate?
Yes, and every time we go through the budget process, one of the first questions we ask when they come in and ask for these positions, do you really need it? Are there other ways of getting the same service? So those are very hard questions that they have to, and hoops they have to jump through before it gets to you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sanchez?
Yeah, Eddie Eveland, on our Assistant City Manager, on March 15th, sent us the position control document to the whole council. And that is a document that has the city's positions showing the number of budgeted, vacant, and filled positions in the city of San Bernardino. She sent that out to the whole council March 15th, and since March 15th, there's been roughly, it may have gone up or down, it varies, right, as we hire and fire, and some people quit on us, but we had 120 vacancies. So positions that were budgeted but not filled. So this is something Councilmember Charette and I have talked about to a large extent. Why do we have such a high turnover rate? Do we need to be more competitive? I mean, we have people leave all the time. When you have 120 positions that are budgeted and not filled, and we have more people leaving, there's something that we have to address head-on.
It's not always financial.
Well, yeah, I mean, I
It's-
was just
it's
getting ready to
not
say
always
that you,
financial.
no,
It's
there
definitely not always
are
financial.
any number of factors that
losing
weigh in
people
on that.
right
and
now that are
we could
leaving.
be here all night talking about that
Yeah.
particular
So
one.
that is something that needs to be addressed, but that also, there's a financial component to it,
Sure.
right? Some of these positions, we're gonna have to look at paying higher salaries.
That's correct,
Some of these, we're gonna have to increase the number of positions because people are being overworked.
yeah.
So that is something that between you, Barbara, Eddie, well, others too, we're gonna have to look at it and seriously figure out what we need to do to tackle that 120 vacancies.
And believe you me, the HR, Susie and Eddie and HR and I have these discussions on an ongoing basis, and probably more recent than I care to, but we are having those discussions.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Calvin?
Thank you, Mayor. So on the 2024 proposed revenues, I had a question about that negative 54% for cannabis. Can we discuss that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I meant to mention that when I was going over them, and it just went out of my head. We had to decrease that because this year, when we budgeted the cannabis, there were several operations that we thought would come online this year. You know, you authorized like a certain number of cannabis operations. I can't remember how many that was, 17, I think. And there are several that are still in construction that we thought would come online this year that have not, that are still, that have gotten extensions and are still working on getting their buildings open, that are not ready to open yet. And those, we've had to reduce our revenue expectations because they're not open yet. And until they are, we can't really anticipate what that revenue will be.
So by 54%? So we
It's
begin to,
several.
we begin to add that revenue into our budget before businesses open? Just basing it upon
They're-
the
the
number of
dates-
applications?
Well, they're supposed to open within 12 months of getting their license. And they have gotten extensions beyond that date. And they had dates that we were told they would be open by. And so we used those dates to forecast our revenue. And then they didn't open by those dates, so then we've had to reevaluate our revenue forecast based on the fact that they weren't able to open by those dates.
So this is by half, so that means then are we only operating half of the 17?
Yes,
That is
There-
correct?
that
How
is
ma- How many are operating right now?
I believe 9.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up? Who's
Sure.
providing those extensions? I know the council approved a certain timeline for each phase, for each, for this cannabis applicants. Who's approving them and how many times are they extending?
Those are approved in Community and Economic Development, and I am not sure what process they go through. I'm sorry, I couldn't really speak to that, and I don't want to, say, this staff or so-and-so. I really don't know, so I wouldn't want to throw some staff under the bus and, give some answer that's not correct.
If our city manager, he can look into that, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, code enforcement, I didn't see a line item for them. Are we waiting for that information to come back? Because I can't possibly imagine a budget without adding code enforcement.
We didn't recommend adding code enforcement because they have not been able to fill the code enforcement positions that were authorized additions last year. I believe you all added 8 positions to bring them up to 20, and they have maintained between 4 and 8 vacancies consistently since then. I believe right now they have 4 vacancies, and that's the lowest vacancy level they've had.
And Madam Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
going back to the earlier discussion that of filling positions, that you haven't been filled, you add more positions on top of that, and that's a case in point. We, as you said, I think we have 20 authorized, and we have 4. We've been able to fill some, but we still have, as of this date, 4 that are vacant. And I've talked with the director, and at this juncture, their emphasis in trying to fill those 4 and not at this juncture adding more. I think once we get to that level, then we can really honestly say, do we need more or is 20 sufficient? But right now, we're trying to fill those 4. And let's do that first and see what we can do. And if that still doesn't solve the problem, we can always come back to you and say, we need some more bodies here.
So is that due to wages?
It is.
So are
Yes.
is that on the agenda for
Yeah,
us to
that's one
increase the wages for code enforcement?
That is one of the areas that we're talking about with some of the other positions, like planning, for example, where we believe that part of the issue is the salary. And so I've asked the HR director to go and do a survey of those cities and find out how competitive we are. Are we below? And if we are, how far below are we that we're not competitive? So there are several positions that we are just experiencing unusual difficulty at recruiting. And I think vast majority of those are salary related. And we have responsibility to come back to you and let you know that, and then make a recommendation to bring those back up to a level, or bring them up to a level where we can be competitive.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So I just want clarification again on the positions being added, because I wasn't quite sure if Councilmember Alexander's question was answered. Just want to confirm on the positions that we see here on the positions added to budget, are these positions that you are now looking for to add to the number of employees that are already in these departments? Or are these new positions, or are they already on the budget? Which one?
The only positions we are asking to add at this time are the three right here: the human resources technician, the payroll technician, and the network systems administrator. The others were already added by council.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Councilmember Alexander? Okay, cool. So I wanted to also then mention, as far as in HR, we did have a DEI officer. That person is no longer there. I'm not sure why that's not being placed back into the
It's-
budget.
It
Currently
is
being
still
recruited.
budgeted, ma'am.
So are we looking for that position?
It's
It's
on the
flying
recruitment-
right
Yes,
now?
it's flying right now. Susie, HR directors?
Yes, Councilwoman Calvin, we are. It's currently open, continuous for the DEI officer, so it is open recruitment.
Okay, thank you so very much. I appreciate that, and I do believe that may be all of my questions. Oh, the disadvantage business enterprises. I'm not really, this didn't strike a memory, something didn't jog my memory, this title, but I wanted to make sure, is this the facade, the program, World to Clean, no, what is this right here?
No, ma'am, this is our, we have a disadvantaged business enterprise specialist in purchasing. And this is the program that she runs to track businesses that are small businesses, disadvantaged business enterprises within the city, and to try to track those and to try to market to those to do business with the city. So it's to try to bring more small businesses into business with the city.
Okay, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynoso, followed by Councilmember Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor. The last thing I wanted to flag, and I know we were talking about capital improvement projects, which I'm sure falls under that bucket, is the street sweeping and a signage program. There was an appetite for that. I know it's costly, but it's something that should be flagged here. I just wanted to note that.
And I'm not even sure it's that costly. Burtech was willing to do half the signage, if not more, and we had calculated it out to be a little over $1 million for signage. So it's 300,000 for the whole city. Well, not the whole city, but maybe most of it.
Okay, Councilmember Calvin.
Yes, one more question, please, on the capital improvement plan projects. I would definitely like when they come back with that information, that it's shared with us what happens then to the projects that have already been on those books, and some of them 10, 15, 20 years. So before we add those, I want to know when and how those projects receive assignment. Yes.
I will add, if you recall from last council meeting, what I said to you was I've directed staff to come and give you a complete, full reporting of all the CIP projects and where they stand, how much money's been allocated, and what's been spent. And I think you remember that the director said at that time that it's been over a year since the last time you've had an update, which is unacceptable. We should be at least getting you that either quarterly or every 6 months or so. So that will be the practice going forward. I don't know if we set a date, but it's coming either, I think it was June 7th is the date that we'll be there to provide the full presentation to you.
Okay, thank you, because it just seems that every time that we are addressing capital improvement plans, those projects just continue to move further and further down the ladder.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, especially when we're receiving also grants from the county, San Manuel, and they're always asking, where are you at with the projects? It's really, really critical that we're on top of it.
Believe me, I'm fully
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. I know you are, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I get.
Thank you. Councilman Alexander?
Director of HR. You know,
Yes.
I see this, and I'm sure everybody else sees this, where it says continuous for jobs. What does that mean to? I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? I know what it means, but I'm just asking for the public's sake. What does that mean?
It's a difficult to fill position, so we leave it open continuous until we're able to interview and fill. We find the right candidate for the position.
I've seen positions continuous forever. It's like, I understand police officer. I understand why that's continuous, but specific skill set positions are continuous. So why don't we close it down, evaluate, and do what we need to do to fill those positions?
I could assess which positions are open right now continuously, but a lot of times if it's a position that there's a lot of turnover or people are, quitting or leaving, then we, have it open continuously to be able to recruit for it.
Oh,
And I will tell you, that's standard practice
okay.
among agencies. It's not anything unusual. We have several HR people here. Every city I've ever worked for, you get certain positions that are difficult to fill. And so rather than limit yourself, you have a time frame. You say, apply between this date and this date. And sometimes when you get to that end of that date and you look at the pool, there's just really not the kind of talent that you're looking for. So you will change that and have it continuous until you get there. At some point in time, you're right. You cut it off and say, let's go back and relook at this, and, or there's some other issues here that are causing us not to get who we want.
Is there a formula for that cutoff date? So, 'cause like I said, sometimes I look at this and it's been there for 6 months, a year. Is there a formula for you
And
to say?
we should leave that to the city manager, their
Yeah, I
human
mean,
resources.
I'm
The
just
thing is,
asking
they
a
could,
question.
no,
That's why you
understood.
have a HR staff over there. They
Right.
make that judgment for you and report back to you.
And I think at times when you're not getting any recruitment, you will pull it off and survey why. Maybe the salaries or what have you is not competitive enough to even pull any applicants.
Correct. And once the position is filled, like, for example, one of the positions in my department, Deputy Director of Risk Management, once the position is filled, then we close the recruitment, at least for some of those that are open continuous. But I don't know all of them that are open continuously, so I'd have to go back and look to see the reasons for that one, for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one other, the council, it's not for you.
Oh.
Thank you, I appreciate you. The council, a long time ago, we asked for I guess your department, Director Whitehorn, to bring back about fees for tickets that we sell, that we add on a fee. Is that right, Councilmember Sanchez? Is that?
Yes, like a for-profit ticket fee. And I think in preliminary discussions, it'll probably have to come on as a ballot measure.
As a ballot measure?
Yeah.
For the Orange Show, for a ticket fee?
Yeah, for example, like the raves at the Orange Show.
Right.
Because
Did-
if it's a fee, we have to do a fee study.
Did we do
shows
that
we
fee
can only-
study?
What was that?
Did we do that fee study?
Well, if we do a fee study,
Did-
it's
did
gonna
we-
be very
did-
limited what we can charge for those.
Right,
that
but I don't think anything came back. Did anything come back to us? No? We can't talk about that?
No, I just was wanting to make sure that you're getting correct information on, are you talking about like an entrance fee?
City Attorney, could you come to the front and turn on the mic so we could join in the conversation? Thank you. And you turn on the mic.
So I'm sorry, Councilmember, my understanding is your question is with respect to generating revenue. Are you referring to something like an admission fee or a gate fee is that what you're inquiring about?
Yes.
I think what you're asking is like an extra $2 fee, like on an admission fee to like the rave,
That's
right?
called an admissions tax or a gate fee. And as a tax, if it's generating general revenue for your general fund, it would require a vote under Proposition 218, and you would need to have 50% plus one for its passage. If the raves or if the activities are creating nuisance kinds of conditions, and the city wants to collect a regulatory fee to make up for the costs that they're generating, that would require a cost recovery report that I think Councilmember Sanchez was referring to, and that money could be tacked on to their events. And then if the promoter of those events, host of those events, wants to collect that from the attendees, and then pass it through, those are two different types of revenue generators for you.
And that revenue generator would not require a vote?
And no, it requires the cost recovery because you cannot collect more than the actual cost of what you're trying to recover
For the fee,
It's
not
only
for the
with-
tax.
Right, for the
Correct.
fee.
Yes.
It's only
So-
recover the cost.
So for the use of police personnel, example,
Well, they pay for it.
that would be a recovery. Police personnel, public works personnel.
Absolutely. And you could do that anyway if you're having events and it's actually costing and you have a relationship with the operator, you could say, hey, your event's costing before you get your special event permit. We're going to charge you per hour for our officers, or we're going to require a $5,000 deposit for this or that or the other. So there are two different things. One is just a tax. It's called a gate fee or an admissions tax. You need voter approval. The other is more of a regulatory fee. It does require a lot more work and a cost recovery report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. City Manager, did you have a response? Okay, Councilmember Charette?
Well, I get all that. I hope it's all clear. There's two different things. One's revenue and one's cost recovery.
Correct.
And revenue is a tax, essentially, that has to be approved by the people. And cost recovery is under 218, when we can only collect what it costs us. So if it costs us $10,000 after a rave to clean up the streets, we can collect up to $10,000. That's all I wanted. I think that's a little more clear.
Thank you, Councilmember.
And
City
I just
City
may,
Manager?
yeah, I might want to add, I believe we are, and this is before my time, but I have to ask the finance director, we are doing a cost recovery review today, or, I mean, I'm at the current time, are we not?
We have a draft fee study
Right.
that is complete, and we just need to have the directors of all the different departments weigh in and tell us what they're comfortable with, what
Right.
fits their model. It's not going to significantly change revenues for the city. We're not terribly far off in our current fees, but it will adjust some fees up, some fees down across the city.
But this particular issue, is that being included?
It's not included. We could probably do, we could probably look at some kind of cost recovery fee for Public Works with the raves, something like that. I don't think that would be difficult, but we could definitely do that.
I mean, if that's, we
Yeah.
can just simply go take a look at that, but I'm just mindful, and Councilman Charette is right on target. When you do this, you have to make sure that you are charging exactly for what it's costing you. Because if you go beyond it, then you open yourself up to
Right.
significant
Right,
legal jeopardy.
and my comment, or my thought is that we might not be collecting enough.
That's
So
correct.
if it's costing
Mm-hmm.
us 10,000 and we're only collecting 8,000, then we got to review that. And again, I think it's really critical that we distinguish between a revenue,
Mm-hmm.
which is, like, goes into our general fund, and a fee, which is recovering a hard cost.
Right, and that's why Barbara and her staff are doing this administrative fee analysis, because periodically, it's always good to go and take a look at the services that you provided where you need to recoup your costs, because over a period of time, those things get out of whack, and you find that you're not keeping pace with what it's costing you for police salaries or whatever else that goes into it, so you need to make sure you're doing that. And so she's undertaking that task right now, and we'll be coming back to the council with the results of that fee study.
Thank you. Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes, I'm looking at page 4 with the proposed revenues, and then page 5. What is so these amounts that you have on page 5, are they part of the totals you have on page 4 currently?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so what we're seeing then on page 4 is the actual then increases or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Of what we have. Okay, just wanted that clarified, thank you.
Of course.
And then, page 12, we have 100,000 annually for tree lighting supplies, 100,000 annually for Miracle on Court Street. I'm not sure if my colleagues have asked, and 100,000 annually for festival. Is that going to be annually, what we're giving them? Or what is it going to, provide more, how much more lighting?
I'm going to
Miss
turn that
Liddy?
over to Liddy.
Okay.
Sit down, Lydia. I want to see you.
Change? No, I'm good.
Just want to make sure, because I know some constituents were concerned about a former event or parks plan.
Are we talking about festival or Miracle on Court
All
Street?
3 of them, because they're
Okay.
each 100,000 annually, if we're going to be increasing this every year for this.
Correct.
these events.
So with the tree lighting, it's always been under Public Works, and we had multiple year contracts in the past. That is no longer the way that the company that we've used does business. It's a year contract. And so we're looking at, just for the tree itself, $50,000 to be there for the 20 days. That includes the ornaments, the lighting, and everything that goes around the tree, as well as the setup, the takedown, and the maintenance if needed. So this year we had over 85 ornaments taken off the tree by different individuals throughout the 22 days. In addition, it includes the downtown lights. So that'll include D Street, E Street, 2nd Street, Court Street. All the light poles are going to be wrapped and lit, as well as security for $25,000 to be able to make sure to keep tabs on what's going on. When we're looking at festival, the carnival itself cost us $40,000 last year. Entertainment was about $20,000, and then the rentals, as far as our tables, chairs, tents, and security as well, was another $40,000. When we're looking at Miracle on Court Street, which is also in concert with the tree lighting itself, we're looking at 12 to 15 days this year instead of 22 days. So we're looking at security, $18,000, lights, $10,000, entertainment, $15,000. The ice rink, if we bring it back, is $50,000, and then materials and supplies for about $8,000, which equals about $100,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Figueroa?
Thank you. Going to the page that says internal services, the one with the histogram, the chart page. When I look at that and compare, but let's say, for example, the payroll department, back in 2008, for the 13-14 amount of employees we had 5 employees in payrolls. That's my understanding. When you look at the ratio of that, it's 1 for every 262 approximately, give or take a few, back in 2008. 2023, it's 1 for every 411 employees. So you can see a significant difference there as far as the need. When I look and compare IT, for the 2008, you have a ratio of 1 for every 52 in 2008, and in 2023, you have a ratio of 1 for every, one for every 52, and then today it's 1 for every 58. But I'm also not naive enough to recognize that there's a significant difference, a substantially big difference between the needs of IT back in 2008 and that of today. So my question is, are we simply, what factors are we considering? Are we simply looking at the amount of employees that we have as a measuring stick to see what the actual need is in the city? Because I'm sure just looking at IT, the need for IT services in 2008 is, like I said, it's substantially different from the needs of IT today. But when you look at the ratio compared to the amount of employees, there's not really that big of a difference. So what other factors are we looking at, not just in IT, but other departments as well, to justify that there's actually a need, as opposed to just, like I said, using the amount of employees that we have in the city as a measuring stick to which to justify the need today?
Right? This is more of kind of a quick and dirty view of you can see how much, the city's growing versus, how much the internal services have not grown. But in reality, IT, the ratio is similar, but IT in network services has 1 person. That's not really sustainable. As you can imagine, networks keep us all sort of alive, if you will. It's sort of like the piece that keeps everything going, and we have 1 person that sort of keeps everything going. So when that 1 person goes on vacation, everyone sort of holds their breath and says, is everything going to be okay? And payroll's a lot like that, same kind of deal, if you only have 2 people. So I think really when we look at that, it's not so much the number of individuals, it's what do those individuals do and what are they responsible for? And who's cross-trained to do what? Who's responsible for this security? Who's responsible for these things? And who has what expertise? And I think as our IT functions get more and more complex, because of course they do every year, and as we improve our IT, of course, our IT gets more complicated and yet better. So, there's this sort of really great thing with getting better IT, and yet it's holy cow, it gets more complicated. So you need even better expertise in IT. And I think we have that with the IT staff that we have, but they need backup and they need people that also have that expertise so that, they can actually breathe when they go on vacation, instead of thinking, do I need to answer the phone?
And I would agree with that. And I just wanted to clarify that because I know it's far more complicated than just looking at the number of employees in the city by which to justify the need for these. So I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at other factors as well to justify the need for these positions as well. Not just in IT, but in every single department. So
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Councilman Figueroa is saying, because I think that where are we building out? What are we planning for? What is the hope and the goal for IT? And are we looking at other cities and seeing what they have, right? Because we don't just want to meet a need, we want to be able to grow the department out in order so that we have a top of the line, in technology and what have you, IT department. And I think that's really what you're saying, correct? So that we need that opportunity to grow them.
Not simply just looking at the need of just based on the number of employees, but what is the vision? What is the need? What is the future? What are the efficiencies? What are the deficiencies? And hopefully trying to accommodate for that as opposed to just looking at the number of employees.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes, is Daniel here? Daniel?
Public Works
No.
Director here?
Nope. Okay, I had a question regarding the capital improvement projects, if somebody can give us a status update. There was some street improvements that we recently had to turn down because the bids were higher than anticipated. And we want to see if that RFP came out again or when it's going to come out, because coming mid-year, we were waiting on those projects to get done. It's been years on the books.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that we have on June the 7th, a full report to the council on all of our CIP projects. So if you can, hold those questions for that meeting, because that one, we can give you all the details of what's been spent, what's coming.
Okay, yeah, because I'm seeing a $7 million revenue right now, and it would be good to address those
Absolutely.
as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're
Thank you. If no other council member have questions, I have questions. I know sales tax revenue are a vital component of local government finances, requiring effective management and a detailed analysis. Do we, as a city, use HDL or a similar company to assist with sales tax auditing and projections? Yes, I see your head nodding. So the 6.5 million increase is huge. What are we able to go deep dive, find out why that there's such a huge gap of projection?
Yes, we based our initial projections on very conservative projections that we made, of course, at the beginning of last year. You know, we made the projections for this year at the beginning of last year, say around March of 22. So those projections were early in not even fiscal year 22-23. So at this point, we would normally be making the projections for next year. So when we're looking at these projections and saying, you know, we're anticipating them to be $6.5 million higher in sales tax, we wouldn't usually be saying that to you because we wouldn't usually have like a year of budget. This is our first like biennial. So I think you're probably going to see that in a biennial. You'll see a significant shift because we'll have like better information the second year than we do that first year on the second year. And the second year for us will always be a fairly conservative number because we never want to come to you that second year and say, whoops, we have to adjust our revenue down by $10 million. We would rather come to you and say, we were really prudent and careful and kept our revenue estimates fairly low and even with the first year of the biennial. And then fortunately, we're seeing good revenue trends and we can increase that. So as long as I'm in this role, you'll probably see adjustments to the positive because I am always loath to come back and say, oh my gosh, we have to adjust these down. I really prefer to be able to say, yay, you know, this is looking better. It does happen. I mean, sometimes economic downturns happen, but I would rather be able to, you know, kind of anticipate them. And we did anticipate a recession. I just did not anticipate that people would continue to spend money through it. That's a little surprising. We are seeing that kind of start to lag a bit, but it's not nearly what we usually see. So it's just been a very different kind of recession than we've seen.
Thank you for that. And
Of course.
again, it's a positive thing, so I was just curious as far as I said. Thank you for the explanation.
I could talk about it all night, but I would bore you to tears. So,
No worries.
So I won't.
Mr. City Manager?
You know, as Barbara's pointing out, the numbers here look healthy, surprisingly so for the city. But taking those kudos into account, they're still not where they need to be in many categories. I mean, for a city this size and for the opportunity sites that we have, our sales tax should be stronger. I mean, there are things that we need to be doing to increase those, should be and can be doing to increase our sales tax. The same is true, you know, the hotel, the TOT tax. We got some opportunities, I think, out there for property taxes. I won't get into details about that, but there are things that we have coming up that we need to focus on how we address our property tax situation, because I think there's some opportunities to ratchet that up. And certainly, there's been discussion about the TOT in terms of Airbnb, and I think that's another source that we need to be addressing. So there are opportunities there that would further enhance what already is happening. And the one caveat is I would always say that California is very cyclical. What goes up comes down. And so we ought to always be mindful that we need to do as you guys have already done, which is set aside an adequate reserve. And so that when you hit those down times, you got some money in the bank that will allow us to continue to operate. So always need to be, I think, mindful of that.
My turn.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilmember Ibarra,
I had
followed
it
by
up in there.
Councilmember Sanchez.
So, Mr. Manager, when you mentioned the property tax, that's the parcel tax that's currently going to the county, correct? We're gonna address it. Thank you.
Councilmember Sanchez.
You talked about the strategic reserve. If you could go to the page with the accounting of all the reserves we have. I had talked, and I think I had spoken with Councilmember Alexander about this. We need to have a liability lawsuit settlement type of fund set aside as well. Because every time that we have a big settlement or we need to fight a big, nationally recognized case, they come pleading to us, hey, we need to pull money out of the general fund, or we need to pull money from here or there. We should be planning for that, especially taking into account that the state of California is very litigious. Our threshold that we have to pay
SIR,
out.
self-insured retention.
What is it?
5 million, self-insured retention.
Self-insured retention, it's at
We were
5 mil.
used to be at 1 million, and then we went to 5 million because
It's
of,
at 5 million right now.
Yes.
So it's at 5 million, so we should have a reserve set aside for that. So that because that is something that we know is coming, we don't know when it's gonna come, and we know the price tag is big. So we should be setting aside money for that as well.
thank you, Councilmember. Director Whitehorn, can you explain? Because I believe we do already have an established line item for liability, and
We-
it's budgeted, currently amended at 9 million, correct?
We do. We have a liability fund, which, is budgeted about $9 million. Yes. Okay.
The staff are in good hands. They are taking care of us. Any other questions, council members? If not, I just want to say thank you, City Manager, thank you, staff, for all of your hard work. Continue doing the great work, and let's continue moving our city forward in a healthy fiscal manner. So,
I
Mr.
can't take
City
any
Manager?
credit. You have a great finance staff over there, so my hat's off to them. They do all the hard work, so. And
Thank
they do
you.
a good job of protecting the city financially, so we ought to give them a round of applause for the work
Yes.
they do.
So if we don't have any further comments, then the special meeting's adjourned at 6:43 p.m. The mayor and city council adjourned to a special meeting for a mayor and city council retreat. The retreat will be on May 11th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m., May 12th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and May 13th from 8 a.m. to noon at the National Orange Show in the Lawrence Room. Address is 686 South Arrowhead Avenue. Enter in Gate 9, San Bernardino, California, 92408. Good night, everyone.